guys, if we didn't fire muskets until we looked them in the eyes. We waited until we could see their faces well. Then we opened up with our squirrel guns and really gave. Did you know that the War of 1812 ended with the Treaty of Ghent, which was signed in Belgium on December 24th, 1814. The Battle of New Orleans was fought on January 2nd, 1815, after the treaty was signed, but before that good news could reach America. Therefore, everybody who was killed and went to the netherworld as a result of the Battle of New Orleans died in vain. At this point, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the evening. His name is Jim Sims. The title of his speech is Alana. Where is she now? Tonight, Toastmaster Jim Sims is delivering speech number 10 from the Competent Communicator Manual, Inspire Your Audience. The speech should appeal to noble motives and challenge the audience to achieve a higher level of beliefs or achievement. Jim is practicing for another 3-hour trainings he is doing this Thursday for loaned executives at United Way of Central Florida in Bartow.
I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, but something touched me deep inside the day the music died. The music died for Don McLean on February 3rd, 1959, in a plane crash in a field in Iowa. A Beechcraft plane crashed, and killed along with Buddy Holly was Richie Valens, the Big Bopper, and Roger Peterson, a 21-year-old pilot of that plane. And Buddy Holly was the only hero Don McLean ever had. And as he folded his papers the next morning to deliver them, he read about that story. I used that analogy early on in my Toastmasters journey to talk about the music dying in our family. It was 31 years ago last month that my 22-year-old nephew, Eddie, was shot and killed on his front lawn in Central Islip, Long Island. And certainly for us, that was a day that the music died. And then 17 years later, I worked on Wall Street when the towers were hit, and I heard the second tower get hit. I saw the first tower come down, and I realized there was another day that the music had died. And I think the music dies in our lives in many different ways. It doesn't have to be as dramatic as a plane crash of the heroes of rock and roll music, or much larger planes that crashed into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. It could be having a developmentally disabled child, brand new infant, and you have all the expectations in the world, and that little girl or that little boy isn't going to reach that level of achievement. It could be having somebody alcoholic in your family and having to deal with all of the pressures and all the issues of that. It could be a job loss. Happens more and more every day in our new economy. It could be being homeless, or maybe being a veteran and not being able to find a job. Well, United Way of Central Florida is local, and it helps to raise issues and awareness, and more importantly, critical dollars that make a difference in people's lives. And I know that we're not going to make experts out of you in just 3 hours, but what I hope to do is to give you confidence and a plan. I had the opportunity to be a loaned executive myself. In 1994, I was out of work, lost my job in banking while I was on vacation in Florida. And I've been a volunteer with the American Red Cross, a first aid instructor trainer, an HIV/AIDS educator. And I was asked to represent the Red Cross as a hired gun, sort of, at the United Way of New York City. And that was a wonderful opportunity, and it was a bridge to moving from banking, where I wasn't really all that happy, to working for 20 years for the United Way, and then for a nonprofit here in Florida. On my second day of training, 70 of the volunteers were sitting in a conference room, and we met Alana. Alana seemed precocious. She was a 4-year-old with the brightest red hair that you could imagine, and she had this wonderful smile that could light up a room. But then we learned from her mother that Alana had a vocabulary of only 40 words. The average 4-year-old has a vocabulary of in excess of 1,000 words. And what Alana's mother told us was that Heartshare Human Services of New York, located in Brooklyn, their First Step Child program had helped her to be more fulfilled, to reach her potential, working with developmentally challenged or kids that are reading impaired. And she was able to share with us that they made a difference. I wasn't yet a Toastmaster, but what I realized that day is Alana's mother had filler words. She had ums and ahs, maybe even a you know here and there. But what I realized that day is that if you tell a story, that's how you connect to an audience. And if you tell a story in a way that people really want to hear, that's how you make a difference, telling a story like the United Way story. I think there's 3 principal things. We'll probably be exploring a lot of things today. We'll have some ideas that you'll have from maybe some of your speaking experience, as well as some of the things I've learned in 17 years as a Toastmaster. But the first thing I would say is to know your audience. And the second thing that I think is very important is to be your authentic self. And then third is to tell a story. Now, when you're your authentic self, it doesn't mean that it's your job or your title. It's who you are at the core of your being. Who are the skills, the talents, the wisdom that you possess. That is your authentic self. And we don't need you to try to emulate somebody else. If you see somebody who tells a really great joke to start a speech and you're not very funny, we don't need you to start telling jokes. We need you to tell stories from the heart that you've learned, that you've experienced. And when you are your authentic self, you unleash a dream that lies within your soul. And I think that's what you need to do as a speaker, whether you're a polished speaker or you're just somebody starting out to tell that story. Now, as far as knowing your audience, what I thought was very interesting to me is, I was working with some of the really, really successful United Way campaigns. In New York, it was Pfizer, a national campaign, raises lots of money for United Ways all throughout the country. Here in Florida, Publix, one of the most generous corporations in the world. And I would assume, well, these people support the United Way at a very high level. The employees there must know an awful lot about the United Way. And then I realized that's true for some people, for some of the leaders, maybe some of the executives. But for many people, they don't know that much about the United Way. So I think that what you need to do is dress professionally. You need to get to know the campaign manager, the person whose other jobs or other duties as assigned is to run that United Way campaign. You have to find out some of the issues maybe at the company, maybe some things that they really care about and why employees are involved, maybe some days of caring that they did. If there's any objections to supporting the United Way, kind of get to know that. And one thing that I learned early on, doesn't hurt after that whole campaign is over, to find out from that campaign manager who his or her boss is, and send a little note or send a little letter and say, hey, you know, Bill really made a difference in that campaign, because it could certainly help somebody in terms of their career. So that would be what I would say as far as the audience and your authentic self. And then telling a story, you need to find your own story, from visiting United Way programs, from experiences that you've had, maybe in your own personal life. But what I would suggest for you is to find your Alana. And now when I think about her, and I usually have a little picture of her, I don't have it with me today, but I usually show a little picture of Alana as a 4-year-old, little black and white picture. She'd be 25 years old now. I wonder if she really reached her fullest potential. Your job as a loaned executive is to help people see a viewpoint that is maybe different than a staff member, because you're only there for a certain period of time, and you have a unique perspective and a certain amount of independence. How many of you have seen The Bucket List? December 2007. If you haven't seen it, get the video and check it out. It is a story of 2 men in their last years. They both have lung cancer. And Carter Chambers says to Edward Cole, Morgan Freeman's character says to Edward Cole, the billionaire hospital executive, as they're doing everything that's on their bucket list, one of those things was to look at the ancient pyramids of Egypt. And Morgan Freeman, Carter Chambers, says to Edward Cole, did you know that the ancient Egyptians considered joy a sacred responsibility? I said, that sounds pretty good, let me Google it. Because that's about how I find out 95% of the information that I have is by Googling it. And so I looked it up. And sure enough, the ancient Egyptians considered that before you could enter into the promised land, the god Osiris would ask you two questions. Did you find joy? Did you find joy, and did you bring that joy to others? I believe the United Way is solving problems in our community every day through their support, their leadership, their intervention. They're bringing that joy to many, many people. And your job is to find that joy, to help people discover that joy, and to realize that they can hear the music again, even if it stopped for a while in their life because of whatever hurdles they've had to overcome. And Deepak Chopra said, in all my research, the greatest leaders looked inward and were able to tell a good story with authenticity and passion. You're on your way, you're on your journey to tell that story with authenticity and passion. Mr. Toastmaster.